Lewis Hamilton 44, Charles Leclerc 16, Lando Norris 4. Today in Formula 1, every driver has a unique number that will follow them throughout their entire career, unless of course they win the World Championship, when they can use the number 1, like Max Verstappen, who went from his number of 33 to the number 1. But it hasn't always been this way. When F1 first started, it was the Wild West in regards to driver numbers, where the number a driver would use would change from race to race. In the first ever F1 series, the inaugural world champion Giuseppe Farina used the numbers 2, 32, 16, 8, 2 again, and 10 in the 6 races he competed in that year to become world champion. This would be the way it would stay from 1950 to 1974, when a consistent race number system would be introduced for the first time. The idea was to take the results of the 1973 Constructors' World Championship and the positions the teams finished in that year would determine the race numbers that those teams would use forever. For example, Ferrari. They didn't have the best year in 1973 and finished 6th in the Constructors, so they would have to use the numbers 11 and 12 forever. The issue, however, arose when a different champion would be crowned, because instead of the old champion going back to their old numbers, they would instead take the numbers of the team that has just beaten them for the title. So to go back to Ferrari, they had the numbers 11 and 12 in 1974 and 1975 when they won the title from McLaren, meaning that in 1976 Ferrari became number 1 and number 2 and McLaren would take Ferrari's old numbers of 11 and 12. Now in 1976 Ferrari would win the Constructors' title, but James Hunt would win the Drivers' Championship for McLaren, so McLaren became number 1 and 2, and Ferrari would take McLaren's numbers, which were the original Ferrari numbers, of 11 and 12, and they would keep them once again until 1979, when they won the title again. So in 1980, they would return to 1 and 2. But they would then be beaten to the title, this time by the Williams team. So instead of going back to 11 and 12, they would now take the Williams team's numbers of 27 and 28, and they would keep those numbers for 9 years until Alain Prost won the title for McLaren but then moved to Ferrari. So Ferrari inherited number 1 and number 2, despite the fact that they finished 3rd in the Constructors' standings and their highest rated driver in the championship was Nigel Mansell in 4th, who had half the points of Alain Prost that year. As you may be able to tell, this system got quite complicated, especially for a team like Ferrari, who quite often in the mid-80s would be challenging for championships but would have the lowest numbers on the grid. On the other hand, it worked out great for Tyrrell, who finished 2nd in the Constructors' standings in 1973, so would get the numbers 3 and 4, but then would only appear in the top 3 2 more times in the next 23 years, but would be able to keep number 3 and number 4 the whole time, as they never won the Constructors' Championship again. A new system was introduced in the 1996 season, where the numbers would change every year depending on where the team finished in the Constructors' Championship the year before. So if we take, for example, 1997, Williams won both titles. So in 1998, they got number 1 and number 2. Ferrari was 2nd in 97, so for 98, they got number 3 and number 4. Benetton were 3rd in 97, so for 98, they were number 5 and number 6, and so on. Down to Tyrrell, who were 10th and got their rightful numbers of 20 and 21. This system lasted until 2014, when it was scrapped for the system we have today, where each driver picks their own number and it stays with them until they leave the sport. Numbers can be reallocated though. If a driver leaves the sport and does not compete for 2 consecutive seasons, the number becomes available again. So for example, Kimi Raikkonen used the number 7 from 2014 until he retired in 2021, so at the end of this season, the number 7 will be up for grabs once again. So there you go, that is the history of driver numbers in Formula 1. But we aren't done yet. I have dived into the F1 history books. I'm going to hit you with some fun facts about some of the numbers used throughout F1 history, starting with the number 0. The number 0 has only ever been used by 2 drivers in F1 history. Firstly, Jody Scheckter used it twice as just a random number, but also Damon Hill used it in 1993 and 1994. The reason being, in 1992, Nigel Mansell won the Drivers' Championship for Williams and then retired. So they didn't want to give Damon number 1 because he was the number 1 driver in Williams, so they gave him number 0 and Prost had to use number 2. Prost would then win the championship that year and then retire again. So once again, they didn't want to give Damon number 1, so he had to use 0 again. Number 1. Before 1974, anyone could use number 1, which has led to 21 non-world champions driving with a number 1 on their car. Although Ronnie Peterson ran number 1 in 1974, he was in a similar position to Damon Hill, despite not being world champion. As Jackie Stewart had won the title a year before and then retired, the FIA allowed Peterson to drive number 1 for the Lotus team in 1974, who had won the Constructors' title the year before. Due to this, Ronnie Peterson actually has more races with the number 1 on his car than 16 actual world champions. After this year, they would change the rules so he would have to run 0 rather than 1, which is what would happen to Damon Hill. There are actually 4 world champions who never drove with the number 1 on their car. Nico Rosberg, Nigel Mansell and Mike Hawthorne all retired after winning the title, and Jochen Rindt unfortunately passed away before he even won the title, so could never drive with number 1. Lewis Hamilton has said despite winning 7 world titles, he does not like using the number 1 and instead uses his number 44. But he has used the number 1 before. Firstly, when he won the title in 2008, he used it for the 2009 season. And secondly, in an FP1 session for Abu Dhabi 2018, he used both number 1 and number 44 on his car. The driver with the most uses of number 1 is Michael Schumacher, who used it for 120 races. He also has the most wins and the most championships won with the number 1. The first ever win for number 1 though came from Johnny Parsons, who was not a world champion but won the Indy 500 when that was part of the F1 calendar in 1950, sporting number 1 on the side of his car. The number 1 has the most race wins and the most world championship of any number in Formula 1 history. Number 2. Alain Prost has won the most world titles with the number 2, with 3 of his 4 world titles being won while sporting the number 2 on his car. And the first ever F1 race was won by Giuseppe Farina sporting number 2. Number 4. Lewis Hamilton and Eddie Irvine both have 4 wins with the number 4, which is the most wins for anyone driving with the number 4. Since 2014, 2 drivers have used the number 4, Max Chilton and Lando Norris. Number 5. Despite often being referred to as Red 5, Nigel Mansell actually has the second most amount of races with the number 5. Sebastian Vettel has 88 more races than Mansell whilst driving with the number 5, although Nigel does have more wins with 25. The number 5 has the second most F1 championships and race wins of any race number. Number 6. Both Keke and Nico Rosberg won their titles whilst racing with the number 6, but neither of them has as many races with the number 6 as Riccardo Patrese. Nicholas Latifi has the second most races with the number 6, as him and Nico Rosberg have both used the number since 2014. Number 9. The number 9 is the only number between 1 and 10 that has never won a world title. This is of course until Nikita Mazepin makes a grand comeback and wins the title. Marcus Ericsson has also used this number since 2014. Number 10. The first ever Formula 1 World Championship was won using the number 10. Despite having 4 world titles, it has the least amount of wins of any number between 1 and 10. When Pablo Montoya has the most wins with 3, and Pierre Gasly and Kamui Kobayashi have both used this number since 2014. Number 13. Despite being considered unlucky, there are 6 numbers that have been used less in F1 between 1 and 100. Number 17. This was the number that was used by Jules Bianchi and has since been retired out of respect after his fatal crash in 2015. Number 21. This is another number that has been used twice by both Esteban Gutierrez and Nick de Vries. Number 22. This is the number that's been used by the most drivers, with 169 drivers using this number in Formula 1 history. It's also won back-to-back titles with two different drivers, with Lewis Hamilton in 2008 and Jenson Button in 2009. Jenson Button has the most wins with the number 22 with 7 wins, and he would choose that as his official number in 2014, and it's since been used by Yuki Tsunoda. Number 28. Will Stevens and Brendan Hartley have both used this since 2014. Number 33. The number 33 has 20 wins, all of them come from Max Verstappen, and he's also the only person to ever win a championship with the number 33. Number 36. The FIA used temporary numbers for reserve drivers who take part in races or free practice sessions, the first of which is number 36, which was once used by Antonio Giovinazzi. Number 40. This is another FIA temporary number, which had been used by Paul di Resta and Liam Lawson. Also, interestingly, of all the numbers to never win a race, this number has been used the most, with 73 drivers using the number between 1950 and 2023. Number 44. This number has 82 wins, 81 of them belonging to Lewis Hamilton, although Maurice Trintignant won the Monaco Grand Prix in 1955 and is the only other driver apart from Lewis Hamilton to win while sporting number 44. Number 45, this is another FIA temporary number used by Andre Lotterer and Nick de Vries. Number 46, it's another FIA temporary number, this time it's been used by Will Stevens. Number 47, it's another FIA temporary number, which has been used by Stoffel van Dorn, but was also used by Mick Schumacher when he was a full-time Formula 1 racer, so cannot be a temporary number again until 2025, unless Mick returns to Formula 1. Number 51, it's another FIA temporary number, this time it's been used by Pietro Fittipaldi. Number 63, this number is the most recent number to get their first ever win with George Russell at the Brazilian Grand Prix of 2022. Number 69! Wahey! 10 drivers have used this number. It has never scored any points. It was last used in 1969. Number 80! This is one of two numbers between 1 and 100 that has only ever been used in one race. Number 88! Rio Haryanto and Robert Kubica have both used this number since 2014, and interestingly, Robert Kubica is Polish and Rio Haryanto is Indonesian, whose flags are mirror images of each other. Number 90. This is the other of the two numbers between 1 and 100 that's only ever been used in one race. Number 99. This is the highest number to ever be used twice since 2014, with both Adrian Sutil and Antonio Giovinazzi using it. Number 101. This number has only ever been used in one race by Alberto Ascari. He would win the race and win the World Championship in that race. It is the highest number to ever win a race or a world title. Number 106. This is the lowest number to never be used in a Formula 1 race. Number 208. This is the highest number to ever be used in Formula 1. So there you go. That is the history and fun facts of Formula 1 race numbers. Let me know in the comments if you were in Formula 1, what would your race number be and why? Until next time, I've been Reese from Stop and Go F1. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.